It happened by accident. That evening was supposed to be ordinary. One of those simple nights you don't think much about until something ruins them forever. I got off work early after a last-minute cancellation, which almost felt like a gift. No traffic, the weather was cool but not freezing, and I had this random thought. What if we just had dinner together tonight? The old way? No TV, no distractions, just us. Something I thought we both missed. I stopped by our favorite little Thai place on the way home. Got her that green curry she always craved and jasmine rice with extra spice just the way she liked. I even picked up a bottle of wine because it felt like that kind of night. Cozy. A small surprise. One of those gestures that doesn't cost much but says everything. I didn't text. Didn't want to spoil the surprise. Thought it'd be sweet to just walk in and say, "Guess what? Your night off starts now." When I unlocked the door, I noticed the lights were dim. Not completely off, but soft, like she was trying to wind down. I didn't hear the TV or music playing, which was strange. What I did hear, what I still hear when the nights get too quiet, was her voice. Came faintly from the bedroom. I couldn't make out the words at first. Just her tone. Light, upbeat, kind of flirty. She was laughing, too. That laugh I used to think was just for me. I stopped in the hallway, not intentionally, just out of instinct, I guess. Like my body sensed something before my mind could name it. The door to our room was cracked open an inch or two. I took one slow step forward. I wasn't even thinking, not consciously. I didn't feel like a person in that moment. Just a shape standing in the dark, holding takeout bags and a dumb, hopeful smile. And then I heard her say it. Well, Eric is just convenient. But last night was fire. Wine, fireplace, and finally someone who actually listens. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. For a second, I thought I must have misheard. That maybe it was part of a movie or podcast or something. But then she laughed again, casually, like what she said wasn't nuclear-level devastating. She leaned back on the bed, her laptop in front of her, eyes glued to the screen, grinning at whoever was on the other end of the call. I didn't need to see the screen. I didn't need to know what Eric looked like. I didn't even need context. I just needed those words. Convenient. Last night was fire. Finally someone who actually listens. Each phrase hit me in slow motion. 3 gut punches with no way to block. I wasn't angry, not yet. I wasn't even sad. I was blank. That was the most terrifying part of it. My body was reacting before my mind could catch up. My hearing faded into a dull ring, like the volume of the world had dropped. My heart wasn't pounding like in movies. It was still heavy, silent, and in that silence, the truth came in like a flood. Not just her words, but all the small things I'd buried, the questions I didn't want to ask because I thought they would hurt more than not knowing. They all started to rise like smoke. I must have stepped on a floorboard, or maybe the scent of food gave me away because she suddenly turned toward the door. Her face flickered. Not fear, not guilt. More like shock that her private theater now had an audience. There was maybe a half-second of real emotion in her eyes. Then, just like that, she switched tones. Her smile softened. Her voice got higher, lighter. Her explain-it-away voice. "Oh my God, babe," she said, closing her laptop quickly. "You scared me." That was just Sarah on the line. I was joking. You know how we exaggerate when we gossip. I didn't move. She kept going. "We were talking about this girl from her office who's dating a guy named Eric. It sounded ridiculous, so I was mocking it. You know how we get." She smiled again, this forced little upward tug of her lips, like the lie might land better if it looked cute. Like I'd just chuckle, say, "Haha, good one," and we'd eat curry and go back to pretending. But I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. Not in anger. Not yet. I was too far underwater for that. I looked at her like someone who'd been handed a puzzle they thought they finished, only to find out half the pieces belonged to a different picture. One I'd never seen before. One I never wanted to. She stood up, slowly, still holding on to the performance. "Seriously, babe," she said, reaching for the food in my hand. "You're home early. This is sweet. I was just chatting nonsense." My hands didn't move. Not a word came out of my mouth. because I wasn't standing in that hallway anymore. I was in every moment that had led to this one, watching them rewind and rearrange themselves. The late-night meetings, the sudden love for solo trips, the way her phone was always face down, how she stopped asking me about my day, the extra-long showers, the distance that slowly grew like mold on our ceiling, quiet, spreading, easy to ignore until it started to drip. I wasn't angry because I already knew. Deep down, I had known for a while. And still, I wanted her to lie. I wanted her to keep lying because the lie, as awful as it was, still gave me the illusion that she was mine. I blinked once, twice. She stepped forward again. Slower this time, like she was trying not to spook me. "I swear," she said. And I noticed her hand was trembling, just barely. "It was just talk. I love you. You know that, right?" I looked at her and, for a split second, I saw the woman I used to wake up next to and feel lucky. The woman I made playlists for, the one I held through panic attacks, the one who painted the kitchen yellow because she said it felt like a morning hug. I saw her and then she was gone, replaced by someone else. Someone who laughed about me being convenient. I nodded once, not because I believed her, but because I didn't have the strength to unravel it all in that moment. Not there. Not standing in the hallway of the apartment we'd filled with photos and half-finished IKEA furniture. Not while I still smelled basil and curry in the air. "Okay," I said, "just that." She looked relieved, almost like she thought she'd gotten away with it. I walked past her, placed the food on the counter, then went to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and I breathed, not because I was calm, but because if I didn't focus on each breath, I would have broken something. Myself, maybe, or just the illusion that love means loyalty, that years mean something, that being there means being chosen. That night we ate dinner, talked about nothing. She was extra cheerful, asking me questions she hadn't asked in weeks. I responded, nodding when I was supposed to, chewing when my mouth moved. But I wasn't there. I was still in the hallway, still hearing her voice, still holding a moment that changed everything. After that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to her, both of us pretending the room wasn't full of something thick and invisible. She fell asleep quickly, at least she made a convincing show of it. I could hear her breathing shift, that fake peaceful rhythm I'd heard before when she didn't want to talk. Meanwhile, I just stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open, trying to convince myself that I was imagining things, that I hadn't heard what I thought I heard, that maybe I was being paranoid. But you don't imagine something like that. You don't mishear Eric is convenient. Last night was fire. And yet, I didn't want to believe it. Not just because I loved her, although I did painfully, but because if I did believe it, then I had to accept what came next. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. So, instead, I started cataloging. Quietly, mentally, going backward through every moment that had seemed off. All the pieces I had shoved into the don't worry about it drawer of my mind. There were a lot of them, like how, about 3 months ago, she suddenly started working later. Not once or twice. Regularly. It was the kind of thing that starts small. "I've got a deadline." Or "we've got a new client and everything's chaos." And it made sense. She worked in marketing. Late nights weren't weird. But then they turned into entire evenings where she wouldn't be home until after midnight, sometimes later. And the excuses? They got thinner. I was helping Kara finish her pitch deck. Or, we all went out to celebrate a coworker's birthday. I never heard of these coworkers again. No photos. No tags. Nothing. She used to love sharing her life online. Her Instagram had always been this filtered highlight reel. Coffee**ts, brunch spreads, her legs curled up in a blanket watching Netflix. I used to tease her about it. But lately the posts slowed down. Then they stopped. Even the stories. Her phone, once a window into her world, had become a locked box. And the phone itself? Always face down. Always on silent. At first, I told myself she just wanted to be present, which would have been nice, if she wasn't also drifting away from me at the same time. Then came the weekend trips. Girls' getaways, she called them. Self-care weekends. Reset retreats. Always last minute, always with vague details. Sometimes she'd leave Friday night and come back Sunday afternoon looking more tired than when she left. I never saw photos. No hotel check-ins. Nothing but a couple of half-hearted, "We had so much fun" texts while she was gone. The old Kira would have flooded the group chat with selfies and updates. The new Kira? Silent. Disconnected. I didn't ask too many questions. Because I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe we were just in a rough patch. That every couple goes through this weird phase where things feel distant. That love, real love, stretches but doesn't break. But the more I thought, the more the cracks started to show in things I'd brushed off. Like how she had started locking her laptop whenever she left the room, even for a minute. She used to leave it open all the time. I'd walk by and she'd be editing photos or writing emails. Now it was shut tight, password protected, and never left unattended. Or how she laughed at her phone while we were out to dinner one night, then immediately flipped it over when I asked what was funny. "Just something dumb Sarah sent me," she said, waving it off. But her tone was off. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. And then there was our anniversary. I remember this one like it's seared into my memory. We always made it a thing. Nothing fancy, just a tradition: Italian takeout, old movies, wine, and a promise not to touch our phones for the night. It was always our night. This year, she told me she had a headache. Said she wasn't feeling up to anything big. She asked me not to make a fuss. So I ordered takeout anyway, lit a candle, put on one of her favorite movies. She sat across from me, barely touched her food, and spent most of the evening scrolling her phone, occasionally smiling at it. When I asked who she was texting, she said, "It's just work stuff. Crisis mode." I nodded. I didn't want to fight. I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe I was just imagining things. That I was being dramatic. That she was tired, stressed, going through something she didn't know how to talk about. I thought maybe if I gave her time, she'd come back. Maybe she was just lost, and I had to be patient. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Because the distance wasn't just physical. It was emotional. She wasn't just tired or distracted. She was gone. Her body came home. Her voice told me what I wanted to hear. But her presence, her warmth, her attention, that had been given to someone else. And I kept asking myself, when did it change? There was no big fight. No betrayal that cut us in half. No storm. Just a slow fading. A slow slipping. And now, looking back, I could trace it. Like the shadow of a stain, you don't see it first. But once you know where to look, it's all you can see. I started noticing patterns. On nights she said she was working late, her phone would buzz more often. I'd check the clock. 10:38, 11:12, 12:04. Quick replies. Lots of typing. But when she came home, she'd toss it on the table like it didn't matter. Then she'd slip into bed, say she was exhausted, and roll away from me. No kiss. No good night. Just distance. And then there was that one night. I'll never forget it. When she came home smelling like a different kind of cologne. Not mine. Not any brand I'd ever worn. It wasn't strong, but it was there. When I asked, she laughed. "Oh, probably from one of the guys at work. You know how cramped the elevators are." Cramped elevator. Right. I let it go. Told myself I was being crazy. That it wasn't a big deal. But it was. Because I knew that laugh. I knew that voice she used when she was covering something up. I started paying closer attention after that. One night she left her laptop open by mistake, and I walked by to close it. For a split second, I saw a notification pop up in the corner. iMessage. From Eric. "Can't stop thinking about your face last night." It vanished before I could click anything. She came back into the room just as I was standing there, and I remember her eyes landing on the screen, then flicking to me, just for a second. "Everything okay?" she asked casually, like she hadn't seen the panic in her own expression. I nodded, because what else could I say? That I'd just seen a text that changed everything? That I was trying to pretend like I hadn't? I didn't have proof. Not yet. And part of me still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't what I thought. But hope was getting harder to hold on to. The more I thought, the more I noticed. like how she always showered before coming home, or how she never let me pick her up from work anymore, or how she kept forgetting to wear the bracelet I bought her last year, the one she once called her favorite thing ever. It all started forming a picture I didn't want to finish painting, but I could see the outline. Her voice that night on the call, so clear, so unguarded, had broken the spell, and everything else I'd ignored came rushing in. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet, because as much as I didn't want to believe it, I needed to know, and that need was about to change everything. I didn't confront her. Not yet. After everything I'd started piecing together, I realized something. If I asked her straight out, she'd lie. She'd laugh, get defensive, or worse, make me feel like I was the crazy one. She was good at that, twisting things just enough that I'd doubt my own instincts. Couldn't risk it. Not when the truth was so close. So I stopped talking and started watching. Not in a creepy way, nothing invasive. Just careful, observant. I studied her the way you study something fragile before it breaks. And slowly, the pieces started falling into place. Because once you start looking, really looking, it becomes impossible to unsee. One name kept coming up more than it should have. Eric. She never said it with hesitation. It was always in passing. Like he was nobody. Just a guy from work. A guy on her team. Oh, Eric needed help with his campaign. Or Eric couldn't finish the report without me. And I bought it. For a while. Because who questions a name that comes with no story? But then I remembered something. 3 months ago, we went to a company holiday event together. Nothing formal, just drinks at a rooftop bar with her team. She introduced me to everyone. Said hi to her boss, made polite small talk. At one point, a guy came up behind her and placed his hand gently on her lower back. Not in a creepy way, but in that familiar way. The kind of touch that isn't *Zool but isn't innocent either. "Hey, you made it," he said, smiling at her. His voice was smooth, confident. She smiled back, tensed slightly, then stepped aside. "Oh, this is my husband. Eric, this is—" "Hey," I said, extending a hand. He shook it, firm grip. "Good to finally meet you." I remember thinking that was an odd thing to say. Finally, we'd been together for years. She never mentioned that he'd wanted to meet me. I chalked it up to small talk. But now that moment played differently in my head. That was the first time I saw him, and I never forgot his face. So when she told me she was heading to a team-building offsite in Philadelphia, I got curious. She'd never mentioned a trip like that before, and it was on a weekend. That seemed off. Most of her job revolved around digital projects, emails, ad campaigns, online content. There was no client in Philly. No reason I could think of for a trip like that. And suddenly, I remembered the way she avoided my eyes when I asked if it was mandatory. "They really want me there," she said, stuffing clothes into a bag. "I mean, I could probably skip it, but it'd look bad." "Anyone else going?" I asked casually. She paused. "A few people. That was it." I nodded, pretended not to care. And then I booked a ticket. She left on a Friday morning. Her train departed at 9:40 a.m. I waited until 2 p.m. to pack. Just a single bag, enough for one night. I checked her hotel confirmation. I saw it by accident on the printer tray and reserved a room on the floor above hers. I told no one. No friends, no coworkers, not even my brother. I didn't want advice. I didn't want comfort. I just wanted to see it for myself. Not a theory. Not suspicion. Proof. When I arrived in Philly, it was already evening. The sky was painted in bruised purple and navy, the kind of city sunset that makes you feel small. I checked into the hotel, took the elevator one floor higher than hers, and waited. At 7:42 p.m., I saw her. She walked into the lobby in heels I'd never seen before, wearing a dress I didn't recognize. Tight, dark green, elegant in a way that didn't say work trip. She was smiling, and she wasn't alone. Eric walked beside her, laughing. His hand grazed her arm as they approached the elevator. And just like in every stupid romantic movie, they paused in front of the doors, close, smiling like idiots. Then he leaned in and whispered something. She laughed, pushed his shoulder playfully, and the doors opened. They stepped inside together. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I just stood there, 10 feet away, watching the digital floor numbers light up. I already knew which one they were heading to. Hers. At 8:24 p.m., I got a text. The room's awful. I'll just rest, don't wait for a call. Love you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put the phone down on the nightstand, sat in the armchair by the window, and looked out at the skyline. People say the heart breaks like glass. It doesn't. It fractures like ice. Slowly, quietly, until the cracks connect. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. There was no anger in me. Not yet. Just clarity. I saw everything I needed to see. And maybe, deep down, I already knew I would. The next morning, I checked out early and drove home before sunrise. I didn't listen to music. Didn't touch my phone. I just drove in silence, both hands on the wheel, my thoughts looping like static. By the time I got home, I knew what I had to do. I cleaned the house, took out the trash, ordered groceries like it was any other weekend. But I wasn't thinking about what to eat. I was thinking about when. When would be the right moment to act? When would be the moment to stop pretending? She came back Sunday afternoon, suitcase in hand, sunglasses on her head. Hey babe, she said, voice light. Trip was exhausting. I'm gonna take a shower and crash. I nodded. Welcome back. She smiled, kissed my cheek. Her lips were cold. I brought you something, she said, digging in her bag. A souvenir magnet Liberty Bell, cheesy and small. Nice, I said. Thanks. She smiled again, and for a second I wondered how she could lie so easily. How she could smile with the same mouth that whispered to someone else. That evening we ate dinner together. She told me about her meetings, the workshop, how Kara made a fool of herself ordering cocktails. She was animated, relaxed. I didn't ask questions. I just listened, stored every word, every gesture, every pause. Then I started taking action. Not loud, not dramatic, systematic. I pulled up old bank statements, compiled receipts from the past 2 years, labeled them retreat, training, consulting expenses. I tallied up the outfits she bought for promotions, the spa weekends, the online courses she never finished. I made spreadsheets, clean, color-coded tabs. Nothing emotional, just math. And in another folder, I started organizing evidence. Screensh *TS, iCloud backups, a copy of the hotel confirmation, the message from Eric, a photo from the lobby, taken on my phone. Nothing damning on its own, but together, told a very clear story. One she couldn't spin. I wasn't trying to trap her. I wasn't even angry. I was preparing. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. I stopped sleeping in the same way. I started locking my phone. Started moving personal documents off the shared computer. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. She was still laughing in her texts. Still working late. Still dropping Eric into conversation like he was just a blip in her universe. But now I knew the truth. He wasn't a colleague. He was a replacement. And soon, she'd realize, I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I didn't respond. That was the first decision I made that felt entirely mine. After Philadelphia, after the lobby, after the text about the awful room, I stopped reacting. No questions. No suspicion leaking into my voice. No changes she could notice and adapt to. I understood something important then. Confrontation would give her control. Silence took it away. So I smiled. I nodded. I asked how her day was. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings and wished her luck on meetings. I played my role perfectly, because I had already stepped out of the story she thought we were still writing together. Instead of speaking, I started counting. It began with finances because numbers don't lie and they don't manipulate. I pulled bank statements going back 2 years. At first, it was overwhelming, hundreds of transactions, thousands of small choices that once felt shared. I categorized everything. Rent, utilities, groceries, travel, clothing, subscriptions. Then I created a separate column for expenses that were hers. Courses she insisted were necessary for her career. Retreats she called networking. Weekend trips she framed as self-care. Outfits bought right before those trips. Shoes that never seemed to touch the ground again. I wasn't angry while doing it. I was focused, calm, almost detached. I realized how much of our life had been subsidized by my silence. Then I counted time. Late nights, missed dinners, canceled plans. Holidays where she was too tired. Birthdays where she said we'd celebrate later. Anniversaries postponed, then forgotten. I marked them in a notebook, not as accusations, but as facts. Dates, durations, patterns. What surprised me wasn't how much she took. It was how little she noticed I'd stopped giving. I also started backing things up. Messages first, nothing invasive, just what synced automatically. iCloud copies, email headers, calendar overlaps, screensh *TS taken slowly, deliberately, labeled with dates and context. I didn't need explicit proof. I needed consistency, a narrative that stood on its own. I wasn't building a case out of spite. I was building an exit. She came home one night humming, dropping her bag by the door. She kicked off her shoes and asked if I wanted to watch something together. I said sure. Halfway through the episode, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled, and muted the screen. Work? I asked casually. She nodded. Yeah, always something. I didn't look at the phone. I didn't need to. I was already 2 steps ahead. Every day, I added more to the folder. Not just evidence, but context. I wrote short notes to myself where I was, what she said, what didn't match. Not emotional entries. Clean observations. Like a report written by someone who had already accepted the conclusion. At some point, the anger should have come. That's what people expect. Rage. Accusations. Sleepless nights filled with what-ifs. But instead, I felt something else. Relief. Because once you stop hoping someone will choose you, you're free to choose yourself. I no longer wondered where she was. I knew. I no longer waited for her attention. I reclaimed my own. I started moving my important documents to a private cloud. Updated passwords. Quietly redirected a portion of my income into an account she didn't know existed. Not to hide money, just to prepare. To make sure leaving wouldn't feel like falling. She noticed small things. Asked once why I seemed different. I shrugged and said work was busy. She accepted it without digging deeper. That told me everything I needed to know. She didn't miss me. She missed the stability. One evening, she sat across from me at the table and started talking about a promotion that might be coming. Bigger responsibilities. More travel. I listened, nodded, even congratulated her. Inside, I calculated how much of that future I would not be part of. When she went to bed, I stayed up and organized the folder one last time. Clean file names. Chronological order. Financial summaries at the front. Evidence after. Nothing dramatic. Nothing emotional. Just undeniable. I closed the laptop and realized my hands weren't shaking. I slept better that night than I had in months. Not because things were fixed, but because they were finally clear. It happened a week later. I wasn't planning on doing it that day. There was no calendar alert, no milestone marked with red ink. But life has a way of choosing moments for you. Started with a phone call. She called me from work, and the tone was off. Her voice was tight, like someone trying to hold it together through clenched teeth. Hey, she said, too casually. Weird thing. Someone from my department said they saw you at a hotel in Philly last weekend. Just random, right? My pulse didn't spike. I was sipping coffee on the balcony, the early evening sun warm on my face. I let the silence stretch just enough to let her feel it. Yeah, I finally said, calm as a still lake. She laughed nervously. Yeah, just thought it was funny. You weren't in Philly, right? I was, I said. Dead silence. She didn't reply right away. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head, scrambling to assemble a defense, to patch the story. For work, I added still flat, still quiet. Same weekend as yours, I guess. She let out a forced laugh. Wow, what are the odds? We should have met up. Yeah, I said. We should have. I ended the call soon after. No accusations. No emotion. Just a see you at home. And that was that. The timing had presented itself. The mask was cracking. The fiction she'd been writing without me had run out of pages. She came home that evening looking pale. Her usual confident stride was missing. She closed the door behind her too carefully, like the air in the apartment had shifted and she was trying not to disturb it. Her keys barely made a sound when they hit the bowl. Hey, she said softly, walking into the living room. So, that phone call earlier, I didn't get up from the couch. Instead, I reached under the coffee table, pulled out the folder, and placed it on the glass in front of me. It was thick now, heavy. Months of patience layered between tab dividers and labeled with cold precision. She looked at it, blinking. What's this? Everything, I said. Take your time. She sat slowly, as if her body had suddenly become too heavy to move quickly. She opened the folder. First page, spreadsheet. 2 years of expenses categorized. Her name in column headers. My contributions in green. The rest in red. She flipped. The next tab, digital records. Flight confirmations. Screensh *TS. Bank withdrawals tied to nights she claimed to be working. Messages. A blurry photo from a hotel lobby. Her hand in Eric's. Their backs turned to the door of the elevator. She didn't say a word. Her eyes moved, scanning, pausing, then moving again. Each page was a scalpel, slicing through whatever story she might have prepared. Every time she looked up at me, I held her gaze without blinking. I wanted her to see it, how still I was, how finished I was. Finally, she closed the folder and sat back, her hands shaking slightly. This looks insane, she whispered. It does, I said. Because it is. She tried to laugh, that same nervous flutter she always used when things got uncomfortable. You really dug deep, huh? Did you hire someone? Like, this is a whole investigation. No, I said. I just paid attention. She looked down, then back up. Look, I know what this looks like. Don't. I interrupted, my voice flat. Don't insult both of us. She flinched visibly. It was the first time all week I saw something real cross her face. I was going to tell you, she said quickly, the words tumbling out. Things got complicated, and I didn't know how to stop without hurting you. You didn't stop. Silence. She opened her mouth to speak again, then closed it. She was trying to calculate which angle might still work. She was reaching for the version of me that would bend, compromise, give her a way out. But he was gone. I'm not here to argue, I said. I just wanted you to see it. All of it. She exhaled, long and shaky. So what now? You want to separate? Is that what this is? I didn't answer right away. I reached behind me and pulled out a small envelope. I slid it across the table next to the folder. Inside were printed copies of the divorce documents. Simple, quiet, no drama. My signature already there. Just a few lines needed from her. Her hands hovered over the envelope like it was hot to the touch. You already? I moved out 2 days ago, I said. She blinked. What? I've been staying 2 blocks away. Rented a place. Filed everything this morning. You? Her voice cracked. You're just going to walk away? After all we've built? I tilted my head slightly. You walked away months ago. I just followed your lead. The tears came then. Fast, messy. The kind of crying that's more about fear than sorrow. She stood up, paced a few steps, hands gripping her hair. I messed up, she sobbed. Okay, I know I messed up, but people recover from this. We can fix it. Please, I'll do anything, therapy, move cities, change jobs. I'll block him. I swear. Just give me a chance. I stood, calm, steady. No. Her face crumpled. You're really just done? I looked around the room. Our old photos, her plants, the books I stacked neatly before I left. Everything still looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I didn't leave because of Eric, I said. I left because you became someone I don't recognize. Someone who could lie so easily. Who could look me in the eye and pretend everything was fine. That's not a marriage. That's survival. She covered her mouth, tears falling freely. I walked toward the door and paused. For what it's worth, I said quietly, I hope you figure out what you're really looking for. But it's not here anymore. Then I left. I didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. I just walked out. Not for a drive. Not to cool off. To leave. A month later I got a letter, real paper, handwritten. No return address. Inside were old photos. Me asleep on the couch with our dog. Her in my hoodie. Us laughing at some roadside diner. Taped to the back was a note. I didn't destroy you. I destroyed myself. I know it's too late, but I always loved you. I just didn't appreciate you when it counted. I didn't throw away the photos. I kept them in a drawer, like memories of a movie I once believed was real. But the letter, I burned it. Not out of anger. Out of finality. She had her say, and I had mine through silence. That night, for the first time since it all began, I slept without waking up once. No dreams. No fists clenched in my sheets. Just the kind of sleep that comes when there's nothing left to chase. Nothing left to explain. Just the quiet peace of someone who let go. 2 months later, I met Layla, quiet smile, quick wit, no games. We talked over coffee about books, family, music neither of us could name. There was no spark, no drama, just calm. And in that calm, I found something I didn't know I needed. Someone who didn't make me feel like I had to prove my worth just to be loved. Kira reached out once from a new number. Just a single message. You looked happy. I'm glad for you. I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, just because I didn't need to. Because happiness, real happiness, isn't loud or angry. It's quiet. It's when you no longer need closure. When you no longer expect to be broken. You just live. You breathe. You build again, not for anyone else. For yourself.